All right, welcome back. This is the Coach Mark Gottfried Show, and I've had so much fun with all my podcasts, but today, so thankful that you've carved out a little bit of time. I've got the head football coach at the University of Alabama, Kalen DeBoer. We're going to dive into some fun stuff, but Kalen, man, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, here's where we're going to go first with this. How big is Milbank, South Dakota? I've never heard of. Is it Milbank? Am I saying that correctly?
Milbank, yeah. It's a little small town in northeast South Dakota, about 3,000 people. So not very big, but very rural and a lot of farming in the area. And so I don't know what the main industry probably would. There's a big power plant there, I guess. That would probably be a big employer. And then, great school district there that I got a chance to be a part of. Usually a class is around 80 to 100 in a class. So very small.
And we all obviously are excited, as a alumnus of Alabama and, coached basketball there for years and years. But, I'm excited about what you're doing there. But just go back for me a little bit, Coach, when you're growing up and you go to your school in Sioux Falls, and now you're the head football coach at Alabama. Just talk about that for a minute. I know that's a lot, but when you were younger, how could you have ever imagined that happening for you?
No, I always kind of tell it kind of when growing up and living out on a farm and, when I was a kid, we only had just a few stations to watch, when TV was on. I remember watching the Pro Bowl and, when you're a kid and it's in Hawaii at the time and, Hawaii could have just well been on Mars as far as I'm concerned because it seems so far away and nothing I'd ever seen before. So probably the same old's true with Alabama and the football program here, just growing up in the Midwest. Just everything seems so far away. Just you're kind of away from anything, and you don't have a lot of big cities. Sioux Falls is a great city, a couple 100,000 now. It's really grown, but that was about it. So it was 4 hours down the highway from Minneapolis, and so everyone was a Vikings fan, everyone was a Twins fan, but as time went on, I just never really made it about feeling like I needed to be at a high level or anything. I just loved coaching and just the path and the success kind of built on each other. And I got lucky to be around and surrounded by great people along the way, coaches and head coaches that I learned from, and obviously coaches that I got to coach alongside. And so, players made plays, we got wins, and, it's been an awesome journey.
Kalen, I don't think a lot of people know, and I didn't know this either. I was just kind of doing a little homework on you, but, obviously you were a really good football player and you're a football coach, but you also had a pretty good run as a baseball player. Now I'm a diehard Dodger fan. I follow them every night, watch them every time. I mean, I've been following them since 1988 when Kirk Gibson hit the homer. But for you, was there ever a time where you thought, maybe my future is in baseball and not in football? Was that ever a case for you?
Maybe at the tail end of the college career when football was done. Baseball, again, you're up in the Midwest. It's so cold. You're really, we didn't even have high school baseball. It was Legion baseball in the summer. And so very short season. It wasn't something that was ingrained in me. Loved to do it, loved playing the game, but really kind of grew into it in the latter college years where the program picked up again at Sioux Falls, and as football kind of ended, got into the baseball scene a little bit and really excelled there, and then kind of realized that probably if I'd have started at a much smaller age, it probably could have been the better sport. But I wouldn't trade anything I've had on my journey for anything. It's been awesome having the football, and I do love baseball. It's a great sport. That's carried over to the softball world, which I have two daughters, and one of them's heavily involved in that. So, I get to carry that sport over into the softball world.
Kaylee, when you go back, and I look back on my career, and, I had so many people help me along the way, and Jim Herrick gave me a start at UCLA, as an assistant coach, and I was able to be around John Wooden. You've met my dad, Joe Gottfried, and my uncle, Mike Gottfried, was a great football coach at Kansas and Pitt and Cincinnati. And, we all have these people in our lives that helped us, along the journey. Like for you, who would some of those guys be, and maybe what did you take from some of those guys along the way that helped you become the successful coach that you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of my high school coaches just made sports and the experiences there special. And then that carried over to college. And Bob Young was my head football coach at the college level. He's passed away since, but he also hired me to be his offensive coordinator 2 years out of playing. And so, that was a bold move. And I think that's really the common theme with a lot of the people who have brought me into their program, especially when I was an assistant or even hired me as their head coach. Coach Young took I think I was 25 at the time, and I probably wasn't ready to be an offensive coordinator, but I dove all in, and he knew I'd give everything I had, and loved the X's and O's. And then, just I think as with relationships being important to me and him understanding how important that was to our program there at Sioux Falls, it was just a great match. And so again, a lot of people down the road that hired me as their coordinator, really 10 years of being a coordinator after I was the head coach at Sioux Falls. And, 4 head coaches at different levels from FCS to Group of 5 that all really, I don't want to say took a chance, but, didn't know me. And I didn't even know there's positions really at any of these spots as I was getting hired. And it just really worked out. And then even becoming a head coach, just people taking a chance on you at Fresno State and Washington and here at Alabama, didn't know any of these people that hired me really along the way. And just really blessed to be around such great people, whether it was, again, working alongside of me or the people that hired me.
Kalen, when I was at UCLA, this was years ago, and we won the national championship in '95, and I was an assistant coach, Jim Herrick. But I remember Jim Herrick telling me one time when I was a young coach, he said he spent 9 years at Morningside High School before he got into college. And he would always say, Mark, that's kind of where I learned how to coach. And a lot of people don't realize that. And a lot of people nowadays, like myself, you just hop right in college and you're going. But, your years, even at the NAIA level, and you had such great success and you guys won national championships. But do you ever look back at that experience? That was something that really kind of helped. You can make mistakes there and the world isn't watching. The whole country's not paying attention to your style of play or whatever. And I think Jim always said that about his time at Morningside. Would that be something that maybe for you as well?
No question. I think about that, and I've shared that with many people. And, I remember the first year I was an offense coordinator in 2000, we went 6-4, and that was a really disappointing season for us. I know that there were things, schematics, you don't really get caught up in being out schemed anymore these days. You don't think that way, but I know that definitely happened that year, and we really buckled down and took some steps, whether it was me and our coaching staff or head coach, and our players, and really bridged that gap. And I learned a lot, had the answers. And then the very next year we went 12-2 into a national championships. And so that big turnaround, but that happened a lot throughout those 10 years there, 5 as a coordinator, 5 as a head coach, just building a team, game moments, the ones that are some we fell short. I think about a couple, we had 3 semifinal losses in 2002, 2003, 2005 when I was a head coach. That one wasn't a close one. It was 55-0 we lost. And so, but I learned from that. I learned from that team that went and lost in a semifinal game, 55-0. And you're thinking, how can we be this far away from what our goal is of winning a national championship? And the very next year, us going 14-0 and winning the championship. And so you find out guys are resilient. You find out if you just stay the course and just keep plugging away, and that the room for error and the margin, there's such a fine line, and you just got to make a play here, a play there, get the right prospect in, stay healthy, win a close game, keep fighting, all those things that you kind of think are cliches. If you just really stick to it most of the time, it's going to give you a pretty good chance of having high level success. And so those times there definitely gave me opportunities to learn. We didn't have really a lot of finances for professional development. Honestly, when you're only 3 or 4 full-time coaches, you don't have time to get away anyway. So diving into film and really studying the X's and O's and the teaching and the techniques that and the progression you wanted to have within your program. Those are some really formidable years for me to kind of figure things out, and also who I was as a coach.
Mm-hmm. I look back, too, for myself when I went to Murray State. You're hiring coaches for the first time. I had to make a coaching change, which was hard, really hard. It's always hard. It's never easy because you're talking about families, and then, you're recruiting and your philosophy, and you're developing all those things. And, you go from that where you had a little bit of a learning ground. Then I think it was at Fresno State was your first as Division I head coach. But did you feel prepared at that time because you had those years before you at Sioux Falls?
I did. I mean, the 5 years at Sioux Falls, really from a philosophical standpoint, how you pull things together in a program and seeing just continuity and the importance there. We had the same coaches really the whole time. We had a lot of continuity from the players. But then for 10 years, Southern Illinois for 4, Eastern Michigan for 3, Fresno for 2, Indiana for 1. Those 10 years with 4 different coaches who are all amazing coaches in their different way, really helped me feel confident going into being a head coach at Fresno State again, that I could take what I had done along with everything I had learned and kind of just apply it and pull it all together. And every job is different. The problems are different. There's a lot of similarities, probably more than you probably realize, but there's just different things. But my experiences, again, shaped who I am, but also gave me a lot of confidence going in that hiring a staff, what that should look like, what to take into consideration, understanding different parts of the country and how they're different, conferences, levels, just gave me a lot of confidence going back there, especially to a place that I had coached at for 2 years prior as a coordinator, to really hit the ground running. Of course, that was the COVID year, and that provided a whole another level of experiences, things that you don't go to a book and read about and try to, you have to figure it out on your own. So that was a new challenge in itself.
Kaylee, when you're looking at players, and we've all done it, and we all get enamored with talent. Like, we got to have talent. I used to say, I'm not a very good coach with a bunch of bad players. I'm a little bit better when I have good players. But, for you, barring, excluding the guys that are just elite talent level guys, and you have some on your team now, but some of those characteristics, the same you probably looked at when you were at Sioux Falls or Fresno or as an assistant or at Washington, wherever it may have been, some of those like intangible characteristics for you that stand out that you say, man, I want that on my team. That right there is what I want. That gets me excited. Like, what would some of those be for you?
Yeah, the film is always what really jumps off, right? The screen when you're watching it, and you get the interest, and like, man, that'd be nice to have that player in our program. And the higher I know that I've gone, I mean, there's just a lot of people that want to be a part of our program. So what are the things that are going to be the deciding factor on really who you're pursuing and how you bring it all together? And that's been a lot of fun here, just kind of sorting out the details and really getting into the weeds on who these guys are. I think, the biggest thing is just their character, who they are. And I think, probably the big trait with that would just be some type of humility that I think players need to have. All of us need to have. I think humility is what really allows us to always ask the question, how can we get better? Because we don't feel like we know it all. And when you can do that, and you can have a humility where people appreciate what they have, who's around them, just sacrifice, I think, comes along with that. There's a whole level of traits that come along when someone has humility. So, and you want that confidence, you want that pride that people have in who they are, what they've accomplished. You got to have that. But I think there's a humility that is really important when you're kind of figuring out the character of people, and obviously the integrity. We talk about character and reputation, right? And character's really kind of integrity is who you are. Reputation is what people think you are. And so you got to be careful not to get those two confused.
Kaylee, when you were at Fresno, and I've said this to people all the time, when I was at Murray State, I treated the job at Murray State like I was coaching, for the national championship, even though it was Murray State. I mean, we all do that. You're at Fresno, and now you get a chance to go to Washington. And, you look through, and, I was in the Pac 10 and the Pac-12 for 7 years, way back in UCLA. But, in the football, you look at Oregon and Stanford had a great run. SC obviously, UCLA's been a little up and down. But you take that job. What did you see going into that job that you said, man, here's what we got to do to be good and to get to the top of the pack, which you did. Like when you first went in there, how did you tackle it, and what were the things you wanted to accomplish to get yourself to that elite level?
Yeah, I think there's always an evaluation of the roster and wanting to keep the best players no matter where you go. When you make that transition, coordinators, as a coordinator, I was doing the same thing, especially when I came in with a new head coach. And so, I think we did a really good job of building a staff that could help the players would feel really good about who is coaching them, who is developing them. Retention of the roster, there were some really good players within that roster already. And it was just a matter of just continuing to complete and fill in the gaps with just a handful of guys. Maybe I think we brought in 8 or 9 transfers the first year, and then maybe close to that many the next year. But it was just really about continuity. And, those guys had been through some ups and downs. And what that did, though, is it created, and when we tapped into that, it created a strength, a bond that already kind of existed. And then now the experiences on top of that bond that we could all learn from, enjoy. That was really kind of what you really want to tap into, because there was some good talent that was already there. And again, just kind of fixing it, pulling it together, and then continue to develop, and then obviously finding that motivation, that drive that they had, but doing it in a team aspect. And it came together. We found those gaps, and we had continuity. Coaching staff was the exact same from year 1 to year 2, and pretty much kept every single player from year 1 to year 2 as well.
Did you feel, Coach, because I did, I'm a fan. I'm a football fan like everybody else, but did you feel, because I felt so, that you guys had a legitimate chance to win it all at Washington? Did you feel that going into those last couple games, and actually your last game there? Because I felt like you guys were good enough.
Yeah, there's no question. And when the players feel that, and it's not fake, it's real. I think that's what you see a lot of teams, and just again over 25 years, especially when I was at Sioux Falls, you saw a lot of teams come in with this false sense, and you can just feel it. When the energy is a little different, and what that looks like versus when it's real and it's internal and it's really kind of been something that's developed and grown. You still got to catch breaks. You still got to stay healthy. You got to get the ball to bounce your way. There's some of those things that have to happen. But yeah, I think there's a real belief and a real confidence and real trust in each other.
Caleb, when I was there at Alabama, I worked for, I always tell people, probably one of the greatest people in Mal Moore. And, Mal used to always tell us in head coaches meetings when I was there, he said, I'm not a very good athletic director, but I sure do love Alabama, and I'm going to try to do my best to help you. And he was so authentic. He was so genuine, and he and I had a great relationship all the way until, a couple of days before he passed. And, I've gotten to know Greg really well, Greg Byrne. I think he's done an amazing job. But for you, Kalen, because, when Alabama called and showed interest in me and then eventually hired me, I remember like yesterday. And but for you, you're in Seattle. You've had this amazing run. You could have probably stayed at Washington probably for the rest of your career if you chose to. But here comes Alabama. It's just a little different than all the rest of them out there. Talk about that process a little bit for you, and how did it kind of come about, and what was your gut saying to you? Because people don't really realize sometimes, even though Alabama's a great place, there's still angst because you've built something great at Washington. You had it rolling. You were doing very well there. And so, but here comes Alabama. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the people, again, kind of that Washington and just the experience there, it was amazing. And I have a daughter that was going to go to college there, and she actually still is there, and felt great about that. So it was hard from a standpoint of you're with great people, but I also knew that this opportunity here at Alabama was something that's just different than any other place. And when I got a chance to be around, and you mentioned Mal Moore and then Greg Byrne, and you just feel that man, there's people with just that humility that I was talking about earlier at a place like Alabama. You want to surround yourself, kind of all the things I said about the way I've been blessed to be around such great people. That was felt immediately, and it really wasn't a process. This thing happened in about a 24-hour time frame. Late that night after Coach Saban had retired or made it, publicly known, was really when this thing gets going. And the next day was emotional in a lot of ways, but it was also one of excitement. The University of Alabama and this opportunity. It was just too good of one to not to be looking very strongly at, and getting a chance to meet with Greg Byrne, meeting with him and his wife, and even a couple of administrators. Just an awesome kind of idea to me of like what this could look like, and our vision and alignment. And it's been all of that. Just love the direction Greg Byrne continues not just take their football program, but our whole athletic department in the midst of some crazy times. I mean, it doesn't mean it's easy. It's hard everywhere. And, but you got people that are solution oriented, that love the trust that he has in me to run the football program. And, together, along with many others, we continue to just kind of push forward. But again, it's great people that I know I'm surrounded with, and everyone's pulling their weight, doing everything they can. I know that's an awesome responsibility that I'm excited about, and, don't take for granted every single day.
Kalen, I was back this year. You guys played Missouri at home, and I was back for a game, and I sat with Greg in his office, and it was interesting that day. And a lot of people forget, all this, but I was still a head coach when we hired Nick Saban. Alabama had gone through 5 head football coaches in 11 years. Think about that, 5 in 11 years. It was Mike DeBoer, then it was Dennis Franchione, then Mike Price never made it to a game, then Mike Shula, and then Nick. But even in Nick's first year and a half, they didn't, they had some struggles a little bit, and then they got going. But I can remember talking to Greg and just how excited he was for you. And you guys had lost a couple games early this year, and people start barking. That's part of the turf. But you're working for a guy that, in my conversations with him, boy, he believes in you, and he's excited about you and everything that's going on there. So that has to feel good for you, obviously, where you have a guy that, he's got your back, and he's going to try to do everything he can to help you, it appears to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate that confidence he has. And I think, when you're here day to day, you can just feel the energy continue to grow, and the momentum to mount to just within. Doesn't mean there's not great days or tough days, both ways, but, you just keep building. And that game was a big one for us, just the way we played. And I know there were some ups and downs before and after that, but I think that was a good indication of us being able to, take moments and worry about that time, coming off of a tough loss the week before. Just really proud of the guys then. I think the thing that I think about in the whole scheme of things is it's really hard to even stay on top when you have continuity. I know that going back to the Sioux Falls days, and I know we keep referring back to that, but that's something that's separate from this that I can always kind of use as an example. It was hard staying on top. Everyone thinks that's always easy. And it was hard for Coach Saban in all those years to stay on top here. That's hard enough when there's continuity. You have players that graduate. It's still hard to stay. I mean, coaching staff, it's hard to stay on top. But when you have as much turnover, obviously when you have a new head coach, there's going to be new assistants, a lot of players that went onto the portal. You gotta, and we have high expectations. We're not going to lose those expectations, but that certainly was a lot to overcome there. And so, that's where you saw us falling short, just that lack of continuity that I know needs to exist to win some close games, which is always going to be the case at this level, because again, there's a very fine line between winning and losing, especially the higher up you go.
Kalen, when I remember sitting with Greg in his office, and I think he was going on Paul Feinbaum that day. And, Paul, when I coached at Alabama, he had the radio show where they would come on and they would start off the show and he'd say, the show where coaches get fired, and that was kind of his whole shtick way back then. And he would take turns, and if he put the bullseye on somebody, it was like, oh, and he put it on me too. It's like, oh, better watch out. But I remember Greg was going to go on the show, and we were talking about it, and it's like, Greg, you didn't hire Kalen for 6 months or 1 year. You hired him for 10 years, And whenever there's a coaching change, I think what the general fan doesn't understand is you're coming in, you've inherited a lot of players who were recruited by somebody else. They're learning your system. They're learning your style. They're doing the best they can. You're doing the best they can. But it does take time to get everything the way to where it's your, your players, your coaches, everything. And people don't, the patience is going out the window nowadays. But like for you coming in, it does take time. And I thought you guys did a great job. You did a great job with Jalen. I had dinner with him here about 3 or 4 weeks ago out here in Newport Beach, Jalen Milrow. But you guys just did a great job. But talk about that, because when you do inherit a program, it doesn't happen overnight. It does take time.
Yeah, and there was a lot of great pieces that were here. And I can't express how much I appreciate the guys that stayed here, the staff that stayed here, and how they were just, really embraced everything that I brought in. I mean, you try to keep things the same, but there's just, everyone's different. And so there's inherently going to be things that you have to adjust to. Change is hard, and, we're all human. And so but I also knew that there was a lot of things that were in place that I need to really make sure I listened to, and we're probably done for a reason. Coach Saban had different things in order for a reason, is because 17 years, you come up with some pretty good ideas based on your experiences. And so I tried to listen to a lot of those things. But there's things you just got to move on, things you got to make happen. And there's ways where you know how to bring it together in your own way, because that's what you're familiar with and how you've done it over so many years. And so what I guess probably was as tricky as anything was, number one, the timing of when this all happened in the middle of January. And I know that I've talked a lot about the portal and how it was open and our guys could leave and really no one else could hardly come in. But I think as much as that is you talking about, a program that was 12-2 here, went to a national semifinal game. So obviously that's some pretty good success. A lot of times coaches take over because of programs, down and you're looking for a new change because of that. And that wasn't the case here. And then you have kind of myself and, I had a staff too that I believed in, and, you're trying to marry and trying to bring it all together. And that's probably as tricky as anything. It has nothing to do with whether people think they're right or wrong. It's just, it's still change, and it's different people working together. And as good as people might be, it's just trying to, marry it all together and pull it. And that's day-to-day operation, and that day-to-day operation leads to efficiency. That efficiency and everything from chemistry on down trickles to your players. I really appreciate what our staff did to try and make those great efforts to do what was best always for our program and our kids, and try to keep it moving forward and get it going as quick as possible. So doesn't mean it was perfect, but I do know that the efforts were made, and a lot of it had to do with just the humility again that I referred to, and putting the ego to the side and doing what was always best for the program first and foremost.
Kale, I thought you did a great job myself, just as an Alabama fan, because I went to school there and I coached for years and years. I just don't think people really understand sometimes how there's so many things every day, and conversations with players and making sure they're on board. And then you have people in their ears at the same time, and you're kind of keeping them on track. And some people are saying, well, you maybe should have left and transferred, or maybe it's not working out. And so there's a lot that goes into that. So I thought you just did a remarkable job with all of that. And Coach, talk about this a little bit, because I don't think people understand either how hard it is when you follow somebody that had the success that Nick Saban had. UCLA had John Wooden for years and years, and Duke in basketball, obviously, with Coach K or whatever it may be, and you're in those shoes. Now you're at Washington, the phone rings, it's Alabama. Does that cross your mind at all? Like, okay. That's that's a tall order, to get in there and follow a guy that's had the success that he's had.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. And, that can be exciting too. But I think, there's been different levels, the following that I've had of other great coaches that I consider, whether it was immediate or just soon after that. Jeff Tedford is who I followed at Fresno State. And I think, in that area, and I think nationally, I think he's one of the best coaches to ever coach the game. That's just a biased opinion. And, it's a couple of years after Chris Peterson at Washington. And, Chris lives there right in Seattle. And I think embracing what has happened at those places and the experiences I had helped me understand just how, and there's only one way to do it. And it's embrace the tradition. It's embrace the greatness of those that came before you, and understanding that there's going to be people that come after you as well here. And so Coach Saban, there's no denying what an amazing legacy he's left here and what he's done for this program, how he just improved it in every way possible. And so, again, that's to me the experiences I had in the past that helped me really, understand how, there's only one way, and it's just truly in my heart how it has to be. And, celebrating the great players, the great coaches, whether it's Coach Saban or any of his assistants that were here, just bringing it all together is what I truly enjoy to do. And I got to do that with our own team each and every day. I'm still learning the history, and the more and more I'm here, it's fun bringing the alumni back. It's fun meeting them, hearing their stories. I'm still connecting dots once in a while on who played for who, and, who were the teammates and who was the receiver that was catching the balls from the quarterback, but, and what games that those were tied to. But it's a lot of fun. And, I'm enjoying that journey personally, while you're trying to really make sure that you focus on what's also really important, that's winning football games and developing a team to do that.
It was a lot of fun even when I was there as the basketball coach, because I got to meet them all, like the Joe Namath and Bart Starrs and, all these guys that you watched on TV, and that was always fun for me and trying to put it all together. Coach, how about this one? So, as in basketball, I've moved all over the country, but kids are kids, young people are young people. It doesn't matter where they are. But have you found it to be the recruiting, like in the southeastern part of the country? And I know you guys still recruit nationally. You've done a great job in Southern California as well. But how has that been for you as far as a different geographical area of the country to recruit to?
Yeah, I think the biggest trick with that is just that, familiarity. And there was a little bit. I mean, I knew the high schools, having been on this side of the country a few times, not down in the South necessarily as much, but a little bit of Southern Illinois. Again, you're recruiting a different level of player, but you're in some of those high schools in Atlanta and a little bit into Florida, and obviously here in Alabama too. And then a little bit with Eastern Michigan and Indiana, in those time frames. I mean, just again, you spend some time, so geographically, maybe where the high schools are at, but the relationships as far as what really matters and the deep relationships with the high school coaches, just the people you need to know, that certainly didn't exist for me personally. And so I knew it was important for me to have a staff that could help bridge that gap, both on the field with our coaching staff as well as support staff, and in particular in the recruiting department. And I felt like we got a good combination of that. Guys who had coached in the SEC, different places, guys who, had been here at Alabama with, especially Freddie Roach and Coach Gillespie, two guys there. And then just, guys who had also been at different levels and were strong recruiters in the SEC. And that's really helped us, I think, kind of in the transition, be able to hit the ground running. And I think this year, even we feel that those relationships are even deeper. Even the recruiting calendar is different this year, than it was in the past. You used to be able to recruit in December and January as an assistant coach, and pretty much every week during those contact weeks, go into a high school if you wanted to, up to 6 times, and only once for the head coach. And that still exists, but coaches now, there's a dead period in December, and really a couple weeks in January is all you get. And so, 2 visits to a high school is pretty much what you're limited to. for the most part. And so the relationship building and everything, is a bigger gap to overcome. And so, coaches clinics and 7-on-7 tournaments and things like that, the touch points that we can have, we really got to take advantage of those. And I feel like that's slowly happening, and it's led to, in the recruiting process, relationships that I think are being realized, and now leading to guys that have strong interest, if they haven't committed already, strong interest, and looking forward to the official visits here in June.
Coach, talk about this one, because I was in the Pac-12. It was the Pac-10 when I was there, and then it became the Pac-12. But anyway, the Pac-10, the Pac-12, now that league is dissolved, and the teams like Washington and Oregon are in the Big Ten and so forth. But, you're coaching in that league, which is a really good football league. It's a really good league overall. I actually loved when it was the Pac-10, Pac-12. I loved it. Great league. But then you're into the SEC. Now, as just a basketball, but also a fan of football and all sports, that's a little different. SEC is just a little different. And what to you stands out as the difference in the SEC as you go on the road and all the places, maybe compared to the Pac-12?
Well, this isn't the main difference, but I will say one thing that is just, different as well is the geographical, distance from the top of the country to the bottom. When you think about Washington to Arizona, and, it's not maybe quite as wide, but there's so much space out there. And so here, everyone's so close, right? And so these prospects that you're getting to know in the high schools, just everyone is just kind of not in each other's way, but kind of crossing over and, mixing it up, that's for sure. And then that leads to, more rivalries, I think, that exists, and just a lot of people that run into each other, which, make it a big deal. And, that's just one element of it. But the intensity, and certainly there's a history here in the SEC, a tradition of just championships that exists. And it's not just football, it's all sports. But it's really important. It's a really big deal. And that investment that's made to the programs, whether it's the fan base and donors to the program, and the program investment to each sport, that's at a high level. And it's fun being a part of it. It's top to bottom in the league is just, I think, probably the difference. There's great teams, I think, in any conference. I don't care which level at the top. But I think the one thing that separates the SEC is what it is from top to bottom. And it's the level of not just the players, but it's the great coaches that exist, who you're facing on any given weekend. It can go either way for you if you don't bring your A game.
Do you think, Coach, the talent level? I know there's great players like in the Pac-12, or like you said, there's great teams they're all over. But top to bottom talent level, when you start talking about the depth of rosters through the SEC, because I always thought in basketball when I was there, there wasn't. You had no nights off. I don't care where you went. There were no, not that there were easy nights somewhere else, but I always thought the talent level top to bottom. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, with 100%. I think any program can put elite starters on the field. And then I think what you saw over many years is the top teams, Alabama obviously would have a depth within their own roster that maybe was just the difference, and you just keep rotating guys through. You can sustain it through the season. You can, an injury here and there isn't going to kill you. But I think, any given day, it's the starters that are taking the field at the very minimum are competitive against each other. But in today's world of college athletics and football, as we're talking, I think that parity continues to happen. And so, even a more fine line between, coming out on the right end or the wrong end. But, I'm excited about our guys because they have a mindset that, we want to get back to, those days, which, aren't that long ago, right? Just, a year ago or 2 years ago, getting to a national semifinal game and a conference championship. And so they really feel not an obligation, but just, we want to make sure that those expectations always stay where they're at here at Alabama.
I know in the era real quick of the NIL and the portal, and you're still coaching, you're doing a great job, and you're going to coach probably for a long time. But, the good thing is the players can receive compensation. There's the ability for guys to make money. And I had players years ago that I wish they could have. The rule wasn't in place then. But then on the flip side, if you say, okay, the good and the bad of some of the portal, the kids transferring, the NIL, I always felt that there's negatives too, and maybe we're not some of the lessons that we used to be able to teach to kids is, fight through adversity and all the things nowadays. Do you see that as well? Like there's some good, there's some bad. Maybe give me your thoughts on that, because I talk to coaches all the time. I've had a lot of guys on this show, and I've had, guys tell me how they feel. How do you see some of that, good and bad balance of what we're living in right now a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt that it's a great thing for, the student athletes to be compensated the way they are, and NIL be a thing that happens that they can take advantage of. And so I think it's a lot of it just still comes around. Again, we've said this in different ways and different topics, but it comes to the people that you're surrounded with. And I think, there's fortunately a lot of our players, I feel like, have great families, great mentors, and, got a good head on their shoulder as well themselves, to where they can process, they can have perspective. I want to help them with that. I feel that's one of our main jobs as a coach is, you think of yourself as a mentor, but what's that mean? And so, we're really trying to educate our guys, help them utilize this opportunity that they have. But, there are certainly certain situations where you get led down a road, and you see this from players in other programs that you get led down a road, get influenced a certain way, and maybe think that this is going to continue on forever, make some poor choices. But I'm just really thankful for the coaches that we have in our staff, that they are great mentors and great people. We love coaching first and foremost. I think our players love playing football first and foremost. And that the NIL piece is just an added piece now that fortunately they get to take advantage of as well.
So, Coach, before we kind of wrap it up, and I thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are, but, a lot of people, like we talked about, they don't realize, I think I wrote this down, career batting average of .520, 10 home runs, could have been on the sidelines coaching the Minnesota Twins instead of Alabama one day. You never know if you'd have stayed with baseball. But forgetting baseball right now, you're the new head coach a year ago, or a little over a year now at Alabama. And I remember even for me what it was like, but I'm really interested to hear your take. You talked to the team that one last time, and it's a couple of minutes before kickoff, and you're walking down that tunnel. You're coming out of the tunnel, and it's the University of Alabama. What is going through your mind?
I'm an in-the-moment guy. And I think that, in the moment, it's all about that game and just making sure your guys, the coin toss is going to happen correctly, and our guys are going to say the right things when this comes to defer and defend and all, like football in that time. But I will say, like, there's certainly an understanding of the history and who's walked in that tunnel and who's ran on that football field and how special it is to wear the crimson, and man, it's an honor, something I don't take lightly. I got too much respect for, first of all, the game of football, and too much respect for the greatness of the people that have walked through that tunnel, been on that football field, and just want to, just give everything you have every minute, all year long, to make sure that this tradition, to make sure this history continues to grow and continues to be something that our fan base is proud of, that our alumni are proud of. And again, there's going to be someone that comes after us someday down the road, players, staff. We want something that's a great foundation to continue to build on, just like it's been for us as we come here.
Coach, there's no doubt in my mind, and, I go back and, obviously you have Bear Bryant that was there. I tell people all the time I had his desk for 2 years before they put it in the Bryant Museum, because we were in the Coliseum. It was funny as ever. That was his desk. But Bear Bryant, Gene Stallings, Nick Saban, and now it's your turn. I think you're going to be in that group with them. So I'm rooting for you hard, pulling for you, wishing you the best of luck. And I I think you're going to get it done in big way there. So thank you so much for coming on today. And I know you're busy and taking a lot of time out of your day. So thank you again for joining us.
I appreciate it. It's great to have you on, or great to be on with you. And, just take it one day at a time. And, you stack those days and great things can happen. So we've got a great belief and trust. I think that's internally building. Doesn't mean we're there yet, but excited about the future. So thanks for your time. Thanks for inviting me on here.
All right. There's Kalen DeBoer, head football coach at Alabama Crimson Tide. Thank you so much, Coach.